Hello, everyone. This is Professor Farley. I just wanted to create a video here that will help you see kind of what these discussions are all about, the type of information and skills that we're looking for, some of the particulars of the writing, all that sort of stuff. So in order to do that, I've pulled our sample discussion, which is in the course resources section, and we're just going to walk through it. So just kind of bear with me. I'm going to read through it, talk about different ideas, what we can build from there. All right, so this is a post from a topic from a few semesters back, and so I'll just read through the original post here. There's a problem with the internet. I'm not talking about an outage or running out of room or anything of that nature. There's a problem with the way a lot of us use the internet. We've let it seep into every corner of our lives. We use it every day to work, play, learn, and teach. Heck, there's even smart kettles that you can control and monitor with your phone or voice. Some of this connectivity and stream of real-time data can be good, but as is often the case, humans have found a way to take it too far. Social media was once a great way to stay in touch with people and topics you care about. Now, however, it's become something else entirely. Today, 70% of the American population use social media, with each person having an average of over 7 different accounts. The average user spends over 2 hours each day on social media products. That's about 12% of your typical time awake gone. If a person lives to be 75 years old, 5.3 of those years are dedicated solely to social media, and that's just the average. Too often we get trapped in FOMO land, where we have to constantly be checking our phones to see if anything in our world has changed in the last 30 seconds. There's a reason the iPhone has Do Not Disturb mode. It's so that we can actually focus and be present from time to time. Social media has become addictive to the point where it's rewiring some of our brains to constantly crave another dopamine hit. Without that constant boost of gratification, people are falling into dark, deep depressions. Hospitalizations for teen girls have gone up dramatically since social media has taken off. Social media companies have created an addictive product that millions of people use daily. We're only now beginning to learn just how addictive and potentially dangerous these products are. Not all is lost, however. There are a few options we have. As Cal Newport said, take a good, hard look at what you're actually gaining from social media. Do his 30-day detox and see what happens. Only add back in digital pieces that truly add value to your life. Another thing that can change is the behavior of companies. Now is the time for the social media companies to themselves to deprioritize engagement, which is just a marketing way to say addiction, and start focusing more on its users. Today, Facebook makes 98% of its revenue on advertising. The typical Facebook user isn't the one buying those ads. Facebook has a business model that's sole incentive is to keep you plugged in, so those ads get clicks. The more you use their apps, the more ads they can sell. These two steps seem fairly simple, but there will be resistance along the way. I think the fight is worth it. I currently live in a world where I have to worry about when and how my daughter interacts with the internet for fear of her safety. Let's work together to fix that. All right, so the student brought up several different issues here. You will notice, obviously, that the writing is informal. She brings up personal examples. She talks through a bunch of different things. And that's perfectly fine when it comes to these discussions. So feel free to, not worry about having an academic tone at this stage. That's for the papers. So ideas here. The main idea here is this sort of thing that we've let the internet sort of take over so many things that we do throughout the day. There's all kinds of smart devices, so that's a hardware idea. There's software that can do this as well. She brings up different points to support this. So we have a clear overview of her points here. 70% of the social media use social media. I'm sure that's higher now. This was a few years back, or a few semesters back at least. Average user spends over 2 hours a day. That's 12% of your waking life here. 5.3 years for those 75 years old. So just kind of going through the amount of time, why do we do this, is FOMO here, and constantly checking, and there's a variety of different psychological reasons why we do that, but so social media has become addictive. Here, dopamine is a key sort of mental process, or it's a neuroprocessor, but it's a key part of the psychological reasons why we do all these things. Bringing up here the idea of depression and hospitalization for teen girls right there as well. Here we have a paragraph about solutions. Here we're identifying one of the authors from that module, Cal Newport, and his idea about sort of dropping all your tech and dropping your social media especially, and then sort of adding back the pieces that you actually find true value in, rather than just sort of mindlessly scrolling through. So that's one of the ideas. So this is sort of, user-based, personal-based choice to take control over internet addiction. On the flip side is companies like Facebook, who have essentially have a business model that they've clearly demonstrated that their priority is profits and things like that. As a publicly traded company, that's completely natural. Their profits are made through ads, and ads are made through people constantly being on their program. So the entire incentive structure of that business model is made to addict people. So that's changing that would be another possible goal, right? How that would change is sort of not clear here, whether that's something that Facebook would choose to do or something that is forced upon it. But nonetheless, it's put forward here. All right, so the key to this discussion here is what I'd really like to talk about in these responses. So we have a variety of different ideas, which we need for context for our responses, but the key thing here is we want to have a dialogue together as a class. And in order to have a dialogue, you guys need to be reading through your peers' work, what we just read through a second ago. And in the same way that person, took ideas from different sources and brought in a lot of information and was using that information to support points, you're going to do the exact same thing in your peer responses. Obviously, it won't need to be as extensive in terms of length, but it should be something that really adds to the discussion, and we'll talk about that. And what does that really look like? Let's look at response number 1. I really enjoyed your writing. I thought you elaborated on the information regarding the internet's negative effects on our lives effectively. You closed your submission referencing your concerns for your daughter and potential interactions with the internet. It occurred to me that is a personal and interesting angle I had not come across during my initial writing process. Perhaps someone else has approached their paper from this perspective already, and I just haven't read it yet, but considering how the internet has crept its way into almost all aspects of and objects in our lives, it must be near impossible to monitor what influences may come across a child's device. We've seen these worries play out recently with the updated YouTube policies that, quote, address regulators' concerns and better protect children, as reported by the New York Times. And here's here. All right, so they've, even though it was just a sort of passing comment at the very, very end here, they've taken that one idea and they've built on it, and they've included a source for that student if they wanted to read through and learn more about what's going on. So that's awesome. That's a great way to take a piece of what one student had has written about, and then you're going to expand on that idea and add to it, add a lot more detail to it. And that, again, is driving the conversation forward. That's exactly what we're looking for. Let's look at response number 2. I know it's probably for emphasis, but smart appliances, such as the smart kettle you mentioned, are usually marketed towards people with disabilities. So while a voice activated or app activated appliance may seem ridiculous to someone who is able-bodied, it could be a game changer for someone who's not. Well, that's a great way to add perspective to something in a way that someone, again, here as she says, to someone who is able-bodied, who hasn't thought of this or hasn't had to think of this, it seems sort of silly, but to someone who really can use it, it's life-changing. So a great way to pull something from the text. Again, if we're looking back here, this was in the first paragraph here with the smart kettles. Taking an example from the text, the student's original text, and then sort of expanding on it. Here, again, taking an example from the text, while I agree with you about the dangers of social media, I'm curious about where you got your information about the average user having 7 different social media accounts. What are you considering social media? Thinking about the different platforms, I can only come up with 5: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. I'm sure I'm missing some. The average person having 7 seems a little unbelievable. So again, taking something from there, maybe you can think of a couple more. I thought of, just off the top of my head, there's TikTok, there's Snapchat. Those are just 2 off the top of my head. That would also be social media. So there are other ones here. And again, you're just doing a give and take. They're bringing that point up. That doesn't mean they have to be right, but they're making you think about it. And as you're thinking about it, then you come up with additional specific information. So again, great response there for response 2. Here's 3 and 4. The internet has always been a place where parents have to patrol, set boundaries for their children. Before Facebook, there were chat rooms and with questionable people or predators. Now the internet's easier to access. People tend to overshare about their personal lives. It's important to talk to our children about the dangers of social media. It's important to instill those values into something of using something when and how it's appropriate. It's important to talk to kids about appreciating the real world in front of them and understanding the internet isn't everything. The future definitely holds many obstacles for parents and children. I have a feeling you're going to steer your daughter in the right direction. Thanks for sharing. So some of my good ideas here. This sort of lacks detail as to, it's discussing things and it's bringing up things about raising kids and social media, but there's not much there in terms of specific information that drives the conversation forward. So that one's okay, but still has a lot of space to improve. Let's look at our final response here. To start with, I love your caption of your post. It makes it so attractive to read. I equally like the way you provided statistical details of the concerns we have regarding the use of the internet. The internet more or less dictates what we do with our time, and that should not be the case. We have allowed ourselves to become slaves to the internet instead of the other way around. We must decide and change this narrative. You did a great job with your discussion post. So here, a very typical response by this student, but as you can see, it really restates the points the student already made. It just sort of does, the affirmation, which there is space for that. I love your caption. I really like that you did this. And there's no, reason not to say those things. But what you need to do is move beyond talking about the things that you like or restating what they've already said, but to add examples, add information, add perspective, put something new into the conversation. And when you do that, that's when you're really, really learning from each other. You're really practicing your own skills of analyzing their work, figuring out something new to say that's constructive, and writing it in there. Such a vital skill. When you do that well, as you can see in some of the responses above, the person whose original post that is, they gain that information that helps them with their papers, and it's just good all the way around. So that's what these discussions are all about. That's what the skills that we're going to be focusing on are all about. So I hope kind of walking you through this sample helps you understand and see what pieces of those really work and some things to do and to not do. All right. Thank you very much.